Oh, hi, I'm the comic guy, and this is another thing trying to figure out this iceberg type of thing. And this time it's Batman. Batman's secret identity. If you don't know what it is, Batman's secret identity is, in fact, the fact that him and Bruce Wayne are the same person. So, there has been constant cases where villains try to figure it out, but not all of them have succeeded, though. Some, but not all. The old thing that he has on his logo from the rest of the time in the Silver Age, from the entire time when he had the costume when he was first had his run of Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams. Yes, the oval logo debuted in the tail end of the early 60s in one storyline, and that was during the rest of the Silver Age, when he got a different costume of Dennis when he had the run of Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams. That still kept it, but the bat emblem was bigger, and thus he continued on and kept it up until he last wear that costume in fall when it was debut of Bane. However, since then he haven't had that type of oval of his logo since. The "I am Batman" catchphrase, pretty self-explanatory. It's a reminder of who he actually is, that he's fear, he's vengeance, and he's ready to strike down criminals. How the instances of his no-kill rule. Now, at first, Batman did not have a no-kill rule. However, a little bit later, it was established that he never even killed his enemies. And since then, it has gotten to the idea of whether or not he does kill people. However, in the comics, he hasn't done that since. In the movies, though, that's a little different. Ben Affleck made the Batman voice sound ridiculous. Yes, he did. Christian Bale made the Batman voice sound ridiculous. Yes, he did. You don't know, Christian Bale did Batman for the Dark Knight trilogy. One thing we all agree on that was not a good idea was the way he did the voice. He did it a little odd. He sounded kind of silly, actually, the way he started to talk. The way he said his lines made it sound kind of funny sounding at first. Yes, he was trying to make it sound like the animated series, however, it doesn't work here because that's a little more different than doing it in a live-action movie. When Michael Keaton did the voice of Batman, he actually made sure it was accurate enough to make it sound like it was actually Batman. Christian Bale, not really. I'm not wearing hockey pants. An official thing that Batman says during one of the times of the Dark Knight trilogy. Batman comes in and someone pretending to be him said, "Well, it gives you the right, man." Says, "I'm not wearing hockey pants." Okay. Back. The idea of Batmite. Batmite is, you might know, is like a miniature Batman, and one of Batman's fans or something. All I know is he's like Batman but mini size. Kevin Conroy. You don't know Kevin Conroy was the voice of Batman since the start of the Batman and the animated series. Since then, he continued on playing Batman throughout many of the episodes of the DCAU. He played Batman in every episode of the new adventures of Batman and Robin, Batman Beyond, certain few episodes of Static Shock, episodes in Superman the Animated Series, and every episode of Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. So a lot of episodes during the DCAU. However, when he returned after a few years after the DCAU shows had ended, and after a while before we get them back, he played Batman during the Arkham games of Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Later, he continued on playing Batman since the Injustice games, and later continued on playing him after the DCAU returned. Like, for a decade. Each one of the different Robins. If you don't know, there's been few Robins. There's been Dick Grayson, who becomes Nightwing. There's been Jason Todd, who was killed, but later came back to life as the Red Hood. There's Tim Drake, who's his own type of thing of Robin, who later in the New 52 joins the New 52 Teen Titans. There's Stephanie Brown, who after became Robin became the Spoiler and Batgirl. And then there's Damian Wayne, Batman's son. Each of these guys had came Robin for a while, as this recording. Dick Grayson was the first, and obviously the earliest Robin. He debuted in one issue of Detective Comics way back in 1940. Then it took like many years, but we had Jason Todd in 1983. Originally, he was similar to Dick Grayson. However, since post-crisis, they decided to change that. Somewhere in that not too many years after, not too long after, like a few years in the 90s, in 1989, we had Tim Drake. However, a few years after that, we had Stephanie Brown. And it will take a certain amount of near a decade and a half before we got Damian Wayne. And in between Jason Todd and Tim Drake, we had another Robin from an alternate reality called Stephanie Brown. Oh, that reminds me. The Dark Knight Returns. The Dark Knight Returns is an alternate reality in the future. Robin's already dead. Superman already is making enemies with Batman. Batman is old and grizzled. He tries to come back to being Batman. The Joker in this universe is slightly different. And of course, we have the fact that, yes, he is a bit more mean than usual. However, this is what Zack Snyder missed. In this case, he still is the Batman with a no-kill rule. and doesn't want to kill any of his enemies. And we had, like, bad guys that were original to this type of universe. Riddle me this. Riddle me this is actually a phrase that Riddler says. May have heard it in the Arkham games, however you heard it in other adaptations of Riddler. So it's a obvious phrase that fits his name. Two-Face was normal as Harvey Dent. Yes, Two-Face was completely, almost entirely normal when he was Harvey Dent, before he became Two-Face. What changed is that someone had thrown acid at him, and it kind of scarred him, and completely changed him into Two-Face. Joker, the original Red Hood is the Joker. Yes, this is true. The previous person who became Red Hood, that's the Joker. That's who that is. And wondering what the Red Hood is, where it's not Jason Todd, that's the Joker. Harley Quinn by her original appearance in the DC universe was not the same way on how she became Harley Quinn compared to a put-in Joker. Yeah, Harley Quinn had an entirely different way in how she became Harley Quinn. Unlike the Joker, where he became the Joker due to falling in a vat of chemicals, Harley Quinn became the Joker due to Joker manipulating her and trying to change her to Harley Quinn. When she was Harley Quinzel, she was just manipulated by the Joker and thinking he was actually not as bad as he seemed. But after that, she just put on a costume and makeup and just pretended that she was Harley Quinn. Which is the reason why there is certain panels of pages in the comics where she does not have the Harley Quinn look and actually goes outside of being Harley Quinn and stays as her and actually does go back of being outside and being Harley Quinn, unlike the Joker, who, because of those acid chemicals, that would be permanent. That is permanent for him. It's sad, but it's true. Clayface in the Arkham games pretending to be the Joker. Yeah, throughout Arkham City, you will not find out that the Joker that seems fully healthy in the games turned out to be Clayface in disguise. Basil Carl was hired from the Joker to pretend to be him for a while. This makes it very clear. This points out many things. It points out when he's disguised as the Joker, he doesn't refer to Batman as Bats. He just says Batman. Right. And when you go detective mode, this Joker doesn't even have a semblance of a skeleton.
Okay.
And also, when he reveals himself disguised as the Joker, you can still tell, it wasn't obvious at first, but when you look at all the other details, you see why. The evolution of the designs in the Arkham games and why they're so, and there's being a chronological explanation of why they're so different throughout each one of the games in the series. And it's true. When you look at Arkham Origins, that is a prequel taking place in Batman's second year. And you can tell that the characters look different compared to Asylum and City. And the actual explanation, years had passed, like near a decade between Origins and Asylum. Biggest example of this being Bane. Here in Arkham Origins, he looks normal, but in Asylum City, he looks really big and looks almost monstrous. The distortion files in Origins explain they took a lot of doses of TN1, and that's why he looks so monstrous in the Asylum and the City. Black Mass, on the other hand, that wasn't explained to Origins Blackgate, when an explosion happened and it grafted the mask onto his face, showing that it was a scar that did that to him. And now in Arkham City, which takes place near a decade after that, you can tell that's why he looks a little different. Firefly, on the other hand, can also be by this explanation. Origins, again, just like Bane and Black Mask, he looked kind of normal. In Arkham Knight, he doesn't look so good. Well, however, one that got a slight better upgrade could be Deadshot. In Origins, he looks like he has a different outfit on. When he was finally stopped in Arkham Origins to get captured, though, it took him a while to get him a new costume. Batman himself in the games, well, the suit was bulky and let him look like he was much stronger. However, you notice the suit is lighter in Asylum City, and he got an armor upgrade at night. That's because of the use of the weapons. He needed a upgraded suit so he could have many more weapons, so it would fit well with what costume he was wearing. Like the grapple thing that he had in Origins doesn't even work well with a costume that light. The electric shock gloves definitely do not really needed use when it comes to how light the costume is. However, he still was able to keep the batarangs, though. The Falcones. The Falcones are a family member of mob bosses. And one of them was the one who caused Harvey Dent to become Two-Face. As you can see in their name, they're supposed to be a family of mob bosses, aka one of the worst people in Gotham. The bane of my existence. If you don't know, Bane was given the name Bane because of his father. His father called him the bane of his existence. Kind of harsh, but actually explains the name. The meaning behind Ra's al Ghul's name. You don't know, Ra's al Ghul means head of the demon. Literally just means head of the demon. Ra's al Ghul's constant revivals. Yeah, wherever Ra's al Ghul dies, he gets revived by something called the Lazarus Pit. Literally, he constantly gets revived by this thing. Batman. Early, the first on-the-screen version of Batman. The first on-screen version of Batman was in the 1943 film serial, and it was just called Batman. And the car was an actual car that they used. The car that they use. The ears look a little different. And it was played by someone you don't even know who it is. Played by someone named Willis Wilson. Like, not Willis Wilson, something. Anyways, this is actually an odd way of Batman, but it was the first on-screen version. Clayface's little cameo in Arkham Asylum. Back when the Arkham series first started, you might notice that when you switch around and go to a cell, and it actually changes into different characters. Commissioner Gordon, then Quincy Sharp. And this is actually revealed that that is actually Clayface. He's just messing with Batman, just pretending to be those people. Like I said, Clayface has many characters of disguises. Or many ways of disguises. Scarface and the Ventriloquist. Scarface and Ventriloquist is a certain type of Batman villain. Scarface, if you don't know, is supposed to be a puppet. It's a puppet-like character. However, he seems like he has a mind of his own, since he seems to talk to the ventriloquist. You might see him in the Arkham games, making like many short appearances. But the ventriloquist's name? Arnold Wesker. Joker in Arkham Origins pretended that he was Black Mask. No, really. By the entirety of Arkham Origins up until the reveal, it wasn't even known. It was always been assumed that it was actually Black Mask the entire time. Nope, just the Joker pretending to be him. This is understandably one of the reasons why Arkham Origins isn't as like the other mainline Arkham games. The thing that Carol Croc has is an actual real-life disease. No, really, Carol Croc, the reason why he looks like that is because of the disease he has that's a rare condition in real life. However, because it was a comic book character, it had to over-exaggerate in how bad it could be. The voice actor for Carol Croc in the Arkham games is actually played by the same person who played Wolverine. Not kidding. The guy who played Carol Croc in the Arkham games by Asylum City and Night, that was Steve Bloom. However, a different person by Arkham Origins and a little short appearance in Arkham Shadow. Batman Brave and the Bold. Batman Brave and the Bold is a Batman TV series that's have a movie in the same name. Batman and the Brave and the Bold is supposed to reference the Silver Age of Batman in the comics. However, it references other things in the comics as well. The Gray and Blue Song. The Gray and Blue Song referenced an episode of Batman the Brave and the Bold. When one character sings about Batman, and it's all about describing who he actually is. The Solomon Grundy Nursery Rhyme. You don't know, Solomon Grundy or Silas Gold had a little nursery rhyme to him. It goes, Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday, christened on Tuesday, married on Wednesday. He explains the evolution of his life by the days of the weeks. It goes even further than that, but that's all you need to know. The Bat villains before and outside of what they were as characters. Already mentioned twice already about Joker and Two-Faces before they became the iconic Batman villains, and mentioned that once Solomon Grundy was Silas Gold, and that one of the Clayface was Basil Carlos. But yes, there's actually other cases where you actually can notice the names of the other Batman villains before and outside of what they were as when they're not really threats of Batman. The Riddler is Edward Nygma. Roman Silas is Black Mask. The secondary Clayface is Matt Hagen. Victor Freeze is Mr. Freeze. And so on and so on. The mystery behind what Joker's actual name was. For the longest time, for many years in the comics, we had nothing but adaptations of what the Joker's actual name was. However, since the new Flashpoint issue, since one of the latest issues ever, the answer turned out his name was Jack White. Barbara Gordon as Oracle. Don't know, for years in the comics after she was Batgirl, Barbara Gordon takes years in the comics as Oracle. This was only in the New Earth post-Crisis. However, in Prime Earth post-Flashpoint, she's back to being Batgirl.
Right.
Troy Baker in his roles in DC DC characters, specifically Batman's. Don't know, in the Arkham City series, Troy Baker actually played certain characters, and in Arkham City and Arkham Knight, he played Two-Face, and in one of those same games, he also played the titular character of the Arkham Knight. Arkham Origins, he was the Joker. In the other Arkham games, that was Mark Hamill. And Injustice had him play Two-Face. Not Two-Face, Nightwing. Deathstroke, underneath his mask. Look at underneath his mask. He has white hair and beard, and he has an eye patch. The eye patch explains that it's a scar that he has, hence why he covers it up with an eye patch. A character that's similar to Deathstroke. Yes, there is a character that's similar to Deathstroke. It's called Deadpool. Deadpool is supposed to be a jokey version of Deathstroke. So they do cross paths. It'll be pretty interesting. Who? I'm the GD Batman. I'm the GD Batman. Came from one of the worst runs of Batman stories, All-Star Batman and Robin, made by Frank Miller, the guy who made The Dark Knight Returns. Since then, it became a meme for obvious reasons. When he said to Robin one page, "Who do you think I am? I'm the GD Batman." That was a horrible series. And it's a good thing that it's over too. Batman facing against Superman. This common occurrence happens many times in the comics, and even got its own movie. However, Batman facing Superman was already a concept, again, many times in the comics. Batman meets Sonic. Yes, there was an actual case where Sonic was in the DC universe, and one of those characters that he saw was Batman. This was an actual real thing. I'm not kidding. Sonic in the DC universe. Deadpool meets Batman. Not joking this one either. Someone actually made a crossover comic with Batman going against Deadpool. Not kidding. The amalgamation of Batman and Wolverine. There's actually an amalgamation of Batman and Wolverine called Batclaw. He's from the Amalgam Universe, an actual universe that exists. Batman Beyond 2.0. A whole thing that I might explain in another video, or maybe not. But just you know, it's supposed to be a Batman Beyond comic that explains why Dick Grayson, aka Nightwing, is not in the show. So, I just leave it at that and we just move on to something else. Black Lantern Batman. Yes, there was an actual Batman of a Black Lantern, due to the fact that he was dead during Final Crisis. However, though, there's a catch. This is not actually Batman, but something else that was used to be Batman. Provided by Black Hand, this Batman thankfully doesn't exist anymore. A video on Neo Mouse Productions paid Neo Mouse Productions, on which Latin Core would fit well with Batman. Batman, as you all know, had someone made a video about Batman, about which Latin Core would fit him. And he explained very easily which Latin Core could and couldn't. He couldn't fit the orange Lantern Core of Avarice. He couldn't even fit well the Black Lantern of Death. He could, however, fit well with the Yellow Lantern Core of Fear, since he's all about that fear tactic. Now then, we're almost there. The Odd-Man reality training in Arkham City. In rare cases, you might get an Odd-Man reality training in Batman Arkham City. All you have to do is glide over and collect these green things. It's only for a short time and therefore you don't have to worry about it. Who in the back? Who is the Holiday Killer? You don't know that there was an event in the Batman main continuity called The Long Halloween. It focuses on someone named the Holiday Killer, and actually was a part of explaining how Harvey Dent became Two-Face. Turns out there were a couple of Holiday Killers. One was one of the Falcones, and the other one was sort of a girlfriend / near wife of Two-Face. It's a interesting thing. And The Long Halloween does explain it well enough. And finally, of course, the last one of this iceberg. Is of course the similarities between Terry McGinnis' Batman and Batman Beyond and McGarrett Harris' Spider-Man. You don't know Batman Beyond is just a what-if scenario of the Batman in the future, where Terry McGinnis' Batman instead of Bruce Wayne. However, you might see similarities between Spider-Man 2099 of McGarrett O'Hara. And that's it for that video. See y'all next time. Bye.